So we're going to get into the comp plan here, ladies and gentlemen. Last week, we talked about the services on the right, which are the direct sales, the network marketing services. Today, we're going to be talking about the direct sales services, which are on the left. Solar through our solar division, Encore Solar, and ADT Security. 7 ways to earn. We're not going to cover all 7 ways today. Again, we're going to cover the direct sales side of the compensation plan. So the way it works is on your personal sales, you make a 70% commission on all your solar sales, whatever the profit is. So here's the deal. The average profit on a sale is $10,000. That is the average. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 15. But the average profit per sale is $10,000. That means that your commission would be $7,000 because the company will pay the seller, the person that closed the sale, 70% of the commission. Now, here's an example of your personal sales. Let's say, for example, the project, you sold it for $30,000 and the baseline or the cost all in was $20,000. That means that your commission would have been $7,000, right? Because that's 70% of the 10,000. Now, here's the deal. We're going to get into a lot of detail here today. I'm going to run by this information fairly quickly, but I'm going to be very thorough with this. The remaining 30%, half of that is paid in a team override comp plan, which we're going to discuss in length today. Now, the second way that we get paid is becoming a mentor. This is one of the things that makes our company very unique, is that people are able to make very big money by closing sales for other people as a mentor. Last year, I closed about 65 mentor sales. The year before that, 118. The year before that, 116. Okay, so that's just mentor sales, not including my personal sales, right? How do you become a mentor? Your first 3 sales, everybody's first 3 sales have to be done with a mentor. When you're brand new, you need help. So guess what? You tag a mentor. They help you close a sale, design the proposal, and close a sale. And when they do, whatever the commission is, you make half, the mentor makes half. Does that make sense? So if the average commission is $7,000, that means that the mentee would make $3,500 and the mentor would make $3,500 as well. So your first 3 sales must be done with a Encore Solar mentor, a Byld mentor. Now, once you've completed those first 3, you need to complete 5 more sales on your own without the help of anybody. You need to show the company, hey, listen, I can successfully close deals on my own without the need of anybody. Now you've proven yourself that you could indeed, you understand the business and you've gone through the certifications. Now you complete the mentor certification course. And now you become a mentor. When you are a mentor, it is not just the sales of your organization that you can close. You can now close sales in any organization. Anybody can select you to be their mentor and split their commission with you 50-50, which is a beautiful thing. Okay. Now it incentivizes the entire team, everybody, to work with each other, right? So I recommend that you use your leadership for helping those sales get closed. But sometimes people may have a Spanish speaker and in their leadership, they don't have a Spanish speaking mentor. Well, guess what? You can use somebody in another organization that is a Spanish speaking mentor. Okay. So here's an example of the mentor sales. We go through this in the presentation all the time. I'll briefly go through it here. If you are a mentor, you help 4 consultants close their first 3 training sales. Remember, the average commission is $7,000. So that would mean you're making $3,500 a piece. If you have 4 consultants close their first 3 sales, that's a total of 12 sales at an average of $3,500. You'd make $42,000 in commissions that particular month. Not bad. Is this doable? It absolutely is doable. The most sales I've closed is 24 sales in a month. There's plenty of times I've closed 10 sales. December, I closed 10 sales. Plenty of times I closed 15, 20 sales. This is absolutely doable, right? The potential here is very powerful. Now, the more you build a team, we're huge on team building. We're team builders, right? If you go out there and build a team, trust me when I tell you, and they plug into the system, they use the scripts, the leads will come in. Becoming a team builder is a very, very big deal here in order to close even more mentor sales. So let's say, for example, you help a consultant close a sale. You'll earn the average $3,500 as a mentor. But check this out. If you happen to have sponsored that consultant as well, So you personally recruited that consultant. You would also earn a minimum of a 20% override. I say minimum because that override goes up as you move up in rank. So it's minimum 20%, which is about a $600 override. So in that scenario, you would make the $3,500 50-50 split mentor commission. But from the override part of the comp plan, you'd make an additional $600. That means in that scenario, you made a total of $4,100 in commissions, and the mentee would have made $3,500, right? You made $600 more because you received that first level 20% override, which again, if you're a manager, it's a 30% override. If you were a manager, you wouldn't have received a $600 override. You would have received a $900 override. It's a powerful comp plan. So, okay, we know this quote. We're going to get into this quote because we're getting into team building overrides. So you'll get everything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. Go and develop leadership, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to break this down, and I've got a bunch of examples. Okay, I know some of you guys get confused when you see this. Don't worry. We've got the examples to follow. So look at that first row, first level override. Everybody starts earning a 20% override on anybody you personally introduce. You will always make that 20% override on anybody you personally introduce, okay? As long as you're active, you're paying your monthly membership. If you introduce Hans, every time Hans closes a sale, you're making $500 to $1,000, right around there, right? It may be a little bit less, it may be a little bit more. The average is about 600 to 12. If you notice down here, average first level override down here, the second to the last row. At the 20%, that's $600 to $1,200 override on people you personally introduce, your front level, your first level. As a manager, it goes up to $900 to $800 to $1,800, and so on and so forth, right? Because as you rank up, your first level override increases, right? So everybody starts earning a 20% override. Once you get promoted to manager, you now earn a 30% override on people you personally introduced, and you pick up a 10% override on everybody below them. That is your team override. So what does it take to get there? You need 2 active consultants. You need to have personally recruited 2 people into the business. Not a hard thing to do. Your average override from the 10%, not the 30%. This is, remember, you earn a 30% override on your frontline people. Everybody below them, you're earning between $250 and $750 per override through unlimited levels in your organization. How do you get to manager? You get to manager when you and your team have done 10 installs in a 60-day period. That is not hard to do at all. 10 installs in a 60-day period. Okay, that is an average of 5 per month. Now, the team split sales have to be 70-30. What does that mean? No more than 70% of those sales could come from one team. Why is that? It has to be done that way. If I bring Calvin, and Calvin brings Wences, and Wences brings Hans, and Hans does 10 installs with his team, but Calvin didn't do any additional ones, neither did Wences, that would mean that Hans made all of us manager. It's impossible. You've got to build 2 teams to rank advance in this comp plan. So 70% max from one team, the other 30% of the sales to come from any other team, including your installs, your personal sales, and any other team. Okay? So it's a very generous split, by the way. Most companies do a 60-40 here, right? So this is a 70-30 split, and that requires 10 installs in a 60-day rolling period. That is another key. This is a 60-day rolling period. It isn't calendar month. It isn't 2 calendar months. It's in a 60-day rolling period. That means it could be from the 15th to the 15th, 2 months later, or in the last 60 days. Doesn't matter. Once you hit that, you now go to manager. Director is 24 installs in a 60-day period. Okay, and you can see the average overrides, team overrides, and the average first level overrides. You can see them right there in the bottom rows. Once again, 70-30 rule, 24 installs in a 60-day period. You now earn a 35% override on your frontline people, which is between $1,000 and $2,100. Okay, on your frontline people, any sales they make. and between $450 and $900 on everywhere below them, regardless of levels. Okay? Yes, it is crazy. So check this out. Then you go to executive director. Now, this is a big boy position, and it's not that many installs. My team last year was doing consistently between 100 and 130 installs every month, and we did not have an opportunity like what we've got here. Executive director is 70 installs in a 2-month period, in a 60-day period. Remember, my team was doing 100. Anthony Bonilla, Calvin Hong were a part of that team. My team was doing between 100 and 130 installs every month, not every 60 days. So when we do this, ladies and gentlemen, I want you guys to know it's been done as recent as a couple of months ago. My team there is still doing those installs. Till this day, I sold my position when we came over here, okay? But we did not have this infinity pay. As an executive director, you're earning a 40% override on people you personally introduce. So you want to go frontline wide. We used to say back in the days, wide or die. You want to go wide, wide, wide. How many frontline people can you sponsor? Can you offer an opportunity to? You earn a 40% override, which is between that 40% override is between $1,200 and $2,400 commission on your frontline people sales. And a 20% commission, which is about half of that, between $600 and $1,200 on everybody below them. Now, a couple things. 70-30 rule applies the same. 70 installs in a 60-day rolling period. Now, here's the thing. You do have to promote a director leg anywhere in your organization. Does not have to be frontline. This is a push and pull complex. You've got to push people up and you've got to pull people up. So it isn't like, oh, yeah, I'm just focused on getting my installs to get promoted. No. You've got to help somebody get promoted to director. You've got to bless other people. If you're being blessed, you got to intentionally help somebody get to director. Okay? Once you've done that, you now not only hit your increase in pay as an executive director, but you now enter the 2% company-wide pool. 2% company-wide pool. Yes, we rise by lifting others. That's exactly right, Calvin. Now you are overriding the whole company because 2% of all of the company sales. By the way, it isn't just solar sales, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about solar sales, home security sales, the membership sales. It's everything. 2% goes into that pool. You now override the whole company. Now, there is an exchange that you give for that. You got to promote a director team, and I'm going to get into those details. You want to remember, executive director, that is a life-changing money, by the way. Somebody could hit executive director, by the way, with 25 people or less, right? Realistically, between 25 and 100 people that are focused on, helping homeowners go solar and building their team, somebody could hit that rank, right? It's doable, okay? So then you go to the national director position. That is 120 installs in a 60-day period. Now, this is the only time that this changes. It's not the 70-30 rule to go national director. It is a 60-40 rule. No more than 60% of those sales installs could come from one team. So it's a little bit harder at national director. But ladies and gentlemen, at executive director, you're going to have executive directors that are making 6 figures a month. At national director, forget about it. It's just another ballgame, okay? And we're not talking about the residual income in addition to that, the dual team. We're not even going there. Now, you do have to promote an executive director to go national director. So you need 120 installs with the 60-40 rule and 120 installs in a 60-day period. So very doable. And you enter an additional 2% company-wide pool. If you're the only national director, that pool, all of it belongs to you. We're going to talk about what the numbers look like in those pools as well. And then as you promote more, once you've promoted 4 executive directors, you get into another 1% expansion pool. Now, these are 3 different pools that you could participate in, by the way. Okay? So very powerful. So let's break down, how this works in detail. Let's give you a visual, okay? And by the way, if we can make sure that everybody's muted, please. I kind of hear a little bit of background. As we know as a manager, 30% override on your frontline people, and then 10% override everybody below them. I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples. Director, again, 35% override, and then a 15% override everybody below them. But let me give you an example of how this works out. So, team building overrides as a manager. Here's an example. This is you here, and you've got team one, the guy on top. His team has 7 installs. And the team down here, this other team has 2 installs, and you've got 1. That would make you a manager. In a 60-day period, you got 1 install. One of your teams got 7. The other your team got 2. That's a total of 10. No more than 70% came from one team. Okay? You got to manage, okay, in a 60-day period. Here's another example of manager. Well, here's another example. You got 2 teams, the blue team and the yellow team. The blue team, this first guy here, frontline guy, sponsored by you, got 3 installs. A guy below him on his team got 3. A guy below him got 1. That's a total of 7 installs. The yellow team, that one guy you brought, got 1 install, and he got 2 guys that got an install each. This is another scenario. No more than 70% of the sales are coming from one team. In this scenario, guess what? You just hit manager, right? In this scenario, you did not have an install. All the installs came from your team. That's okay. Your installs, personal sales count, in addition to your teams. Your personal sales count almost as its own team on its own, okay? You did that in a 60-day period. You became a manager. So here's an example of how much money would you earn in that scenario as a manager, okay? Let's say you did get 1 install. You got a sale. You made $7,000. Your 2 guys that you introduced in this scenario, you introduced 2 guys into the business, a guy and a girl. They went out there and got 3 installs. They're working. You made $2,700 on each one based on your 30% override. You made $2,700 because it's $900 on each install that they made. Now, you earn a 10% override every sale underneath them because they're your front line, first level. Everything underneath them, you earn a 10% install. We're going based on a $10,000 margin, right? In this scenario, you made total overrides $6,300 as a manager. As a manager with a team of what's this, 6 people. As a manager, you earn $6,300 in commissions, another $7,000 from your personal install. You're at $13,300 in this hypothetical example. This is for training purposes, by the way. Let's make that disclaimer, right? We don't want to get in trouble. Everybody that's on here is already a consultant in the business, right? Nobody here is a prospect. I'm showing you a hypothetical example. The numbers can be different. If you don't get an install, for example, that's $7,000 you would not make. If most of the sales were not from your front line, but underneath them, that would change your commissions as well. Okay? So let's keep going. Director, 24 installs. Here's an example. 24 installs. Let's say you got 17 installs from one team and the other 7 installs from the other team. That would make you a director. If you have any installs yourself, that would count towards it. But in this scenario, you wouldn't need it. So as a director, let's look at some examples. As a director, you got an install, right? Your frontline guy, that first guy there in blue, he got 4 installs himself. The guy in yellow that you introduced got 5. You made $4,200 and $5,250. And then the rest of the installs, you know, this other guy down here in yellow got 5 installs. This other guy got 4. Mind you, these installs here, it doesn't matter how deep they go in the organization, right? Those are the overrides that you earn. And then this guy in blue, the second guy in blue got 3. The other guy got 3 as well. That's another $1,350 based on your director overrides. See, as a director override, you're earning a 15% override on everybody below them and a 35% override on your frontline people. So based on this here, as a director, you earned $16,000, $16,200 in overrides. By the way, this says as manager. That's wrong. It says as director. Okay, I need to edit that. And $7,000 from your personal commission. In this scenario, you make $23,200. Those of you guys that are focused on building a team, the sales are going to come automatically as you're focused on building your dual team and building your residual. Plus, you're making the coded bonus on every recruit that joins your organization. Okay, it's crazy. So here are 2 different examples to get to executive director. Remember, executive director is 70 installs in a 60-day period. So, example number one on the left. One team did 49 installs. The other team did 21 installs. You're an executive director. Congratulations. Example number two. You've got three teams. One team did 40. The other team did 20. The other team did 9. It doesn't matter. You could have 10 teams. If all 10 teams have one sale, you're an executive director. You just cannot have more than 70% of those sales come from one team. Let's say, for example, team 1 did 60 installs. The most you could use from one team for executive director is 49. That's 70%. Okay? So I hope this is giving you guys an idea about the 70-30 rule. So here's an example of an executive director. Okay? You got one team, you got the blue guy here and the yellow guy, frontline people, they got 7 installs, right? And then the rest of the installs came anywhere underneath them. Your total overrides would be, you'd earn a 40% override on people you personally introduced, and then a 20% override on everybody below them. In this scenario, you would have earned total overrides as an ED, 51,000 in overrides. If you got an install yourself, that's an extra $7,000. You're at $58,000 in commissions in this scenario, plus the 2% global bonus pool, which there's no way of telling what it would be, but I would guess that's a couple $1,000 at least, between $3,000 and $10,000, right? Again, it depends on how many installs. We will get into some examples later on in this training on what that 2% equals. Okay, so bear with me. National director, once again, this is based on the 60-40 rule, not 70-30. It gets a little bit harder with our last rank, which is national director. Okay, as a national director, 120 installs in the 60-day period, no more than 60% of the sales could come from one team. That would be 72 installs from one team or 48 installs from the other, or it could be 72 installs from one team and then 24 installs from another team and 24 installs from another team, right? What if it's 72 installs from one team and the second team only has 46 installs? You're too shy, but you yourself did 2 installs. You're there. You're a national director. You count as one of your teams. Your personal sales and installs count towards your rank advancement. Okay. Here's an example, right, of the way that the commissions would work. This is a hypothetical example, right? The numbers could change depending on where the sales are, how many sales come from your front line, and how many of them, let's see. Let me see. I do want to answer this question. Let's see. So the 2 legs in the 70-30 can come from the same dual team binary size. Yes. This has nothing to do with the binary. It doesn't matter if you happen to have one huge organization in the binary, right? But every single recruit that you put in the binary, the dual team goes either the left or right, but they're all front line here. So yes, technically they could all be done from a team on your power lift or all done from a team on your pay lift. It's irrelevant. That's why it's a beautiful comp plan. You got the binary is powerful, but then you've got this infinity pay on the high ticket sales. By the way, we're not even counting ADT security sales here. What if there's 10%, 20, 30% ADT home security sales? You could add an extra couple $1,000s to this scenario, right? So in this example, you broke 6 figures for the month, right? Well, depends, right? That's assuming that you did this in a month. You don't have to do these many sales in a month to hit national director. But some of you, I believe that by the end of the year, we will have teams doing this amount of installs every single month. Every month. In that scenario, that person would earn $107,000 in commissions plus 4% overriding the entire company. That's a beautiful thing. It's not just your team. It's, hey, listen, what if another team asks you to do trainings, right? You're going to want to do them. Why? Because guess what? I'll meet you in the pools, right? Just like when we have our convention, we'll have it in Las Vegas, right? And we're going to meet in the pools there. So we're going to meet in the pools in 2 different ways. So here's an executive. Now we're going to go through how the mechanics work. How can you pay through infinity? There's got to be a logical way. There's got to be a catch, JC. There is a catch. There has to be. There's only 100 pennies in a dollar. So let's get into an example of an executive director. You earn a 40% override on your front line and a 20% override from level 2 through below. So you're an executive director with 4 different team legs, right? So let's say, for example, that first team leg there, you see that? This pops up. Bang. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 levels deep. You earn 20%. Why? Because on the 7th level, a manager got promoted in your organization. That manager picks up that 10% override from him on down through infinity. That means that you would earn in this scenario 20% override all the way up to the last company I was with paid 6 levels only, and you needed 40 recruits to open up 6 levels. So here you're making a 20% override all the way through that 7th level. Then let's say that's Calvin. Calvin hit manager. I congratulate him. Calvin, great job. He now gets a 30% bump in pay on his front line and a 10% team override. Here's what that means, though. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that I now earn the difference. Instead of a 20% override on Calvin's team and below, I earn 20% up to Calvin, and I earned the other 10% override, which is a difference on his team. So because he gets 10%, I get 10%. Does that make sense? So let's look at another example. Let's say your second team, you're making that 20% override, but then, 9 levels deep, you hit a director that's at a 15% override. Well, you would earn the 5% difference through infinity from that director leg on. And let's say the other ones, you don't have anybody promoted on those. No matter how many levels deep, you're earning that 20% override through infinity levels. Okay? We're going to talk about what happens when somebody catches up to your rank, right? So that's an executive director overrides. Now, in order to get promoted to executive director, you must promote a director in your organization. You have to, right? So here's the way it works. Let me make this brighter. Executive director, you see this first brown circle? That is your first director team. These other guys are not directors yet. They're consultants. They're moving their way up. But your first director team, here's what happens. Okay, let me click here. Let's say, for example, your first director team is what's called the exchange team. Here's a beautiful thing about the exchange team. You do not lose them. There's other companies where you lose that whole team forever and you never override them ever again. That's not the case here. Now, there's a lot of merit in that, but people don't like it. Here's a way that we did it. We did a 70-30 split on the exchange team. What does that mean? You've got a national director. Let's say that exchange team, that director leg is making you, for simple round numbers, is making you $10,000 per month in overrides, not including what the other teams are making you. That particular team's making you 10 grand. Once you promote, in order for you to go director, you got to promote in order for you to go executive director, you have to promote a director leg. So here's what happens. When you promote that first director leg, that director leg now goes to your national director. Only 70% of the overrides from that leg. So you're earning 10. The national director is earning 7,000. You are earning 3,000. That is the exchange leg, but you're still earning 30% always on that director's sales. Always earning that 30% for life, plus the volume that director leg does still counts for you to continue to rank advance, and for the people above it. But here's what happens. Now that you've done this, ladies and gentlemen, okay, you pick up, because even though you have an exchange leg, quote unquote exchange leg of that first director leg, so essentially from that director leg, you are losing 70% of the overrides, but you're going to pick it up here. You exchange that, though, for the 2% company override. You're overriding the whole company, right? 2% override. So I'll give you an example. Once you go national director, the same thing now happens for you. You got an executive director on your team, okay? That executive director on your team, These two guys here, that's you in yellow, and you've got executive directors. Remember, you had an exchange leg. You had an exchange leg, only one exchange leg that you didn't lose. You kept 30% of all the overrides regardless. And you never have to do it again. But here's what happens. You give up one to get many. You give up a 70% of that overrides to get many. Once you got your first executive team, that guy, that's you in yellow. You got two executive guys going in blue. Their first director leg, guess what? They go to you. You earn 70% of the overrides on that leg. They still keep 30. You keep 70. Every person in your organization that continues to get rank advanced to executive director, they have to promote what? One director team. That director team, you pick up 70% of the overrides on that director team. Every time that happens, you pick up that 70% override. So you give up one to get many. Again, if any of you guys are familiar with companies like Primerica, WFG, great companies, they have what's called an exchange leg, like ours. The difference is that with them, you lose the team entirely. You do not earn any money on that exchange team ever. What we did is we did a 70% split. You're an executive director, okay? And I'm spending more time on this because I know that it confuses some people. You're an executive director. Your first director team, whatever they're earning you, you're going to keep 30% of the overrides as soon as you go executive director, because the other 70% go to your national director. The volume still comes for you to get rank advanced, and you still keep 30% of the overrides from that team. Whatever that team produced overrides, 30% are still yours. You also get, though, in the 2% company pool. So even though you may lose a little bit of money on that executive leg, you're now overriding all the installs in the company, right? So it's a nice exchange. But once you go and national director, you're helping people go executive director. Remember, they have to promote a director team. When they promote that director team, now you're picking up leadership legs, leadership teams, different leadership teams you are picking up, and you are overriding 70% on those teams. Excuse me. Once you promote a director team, all your other teams need to promote a director team in order to go executive director. When they promote their first director, you will make 70% of all the overrides from that first director team. So you give up one to get many. And you don't really give them up, right? You're always overriding that first director team 30%, okay? Now, executive directors. Here's an example. We talked about this example. What if you build an executive director team with 25 consultants that are doing 4 installs per month? That's 100 installs per month. If 20% of those installs came from level 1 and the other 80 came from anywhere in your team, you'd be at about $60,000 in overrides without any personal sales or without any mentor sales of your own, just in overrides. Here's the way it breaks down. $24,000 is what you would earn from your first level. Remember, 20% of those installs came from your frontline people at a 40% override. The other $36,000 came from your team's overrides. And by the way, we did this number based on a 15% override. It's actually a 20% override. Why do we do it on a 15% average override? Because you'll have some breakage. Maybe some people hit manager or director. So we didn't want to base it on 20%. We base it on 15%. You're still at $60,000 in overrides. Very, very powerful. Same example, but this person didn't do it with 25 people. He did it with 200. He focused on his people are not full-time. They're part-time. They put deals in here and there. Same $60,000. It's still the same 100 installs, right? The same thing breaks down, but there's 2 ways to get to executive director. Some people are going to get to executive director with a small group of people that are all full-timers. Some people are going to get to an executive director building more like a network marketing model, recruiting a lot of people and then them generating leads for the mentors. Those mentor sales get closed and you hit those numbers as well. So let's keep going. ADT home security commissions are paid through this same comp plan. We're not going to get into the details of this. We're going to do a ADT training in detail, and we're going to show you what the commissions look like on your personal commissions and your overrides Once again, the overrides get paid through the same comp plan that we're talking about here. So let's talk about the 4% bonus pools. As an executive director, ladies and gentlemen, as an executive director, you earn a 2% of all solar security installs go into this executive director pool. 2% is an average of $60 to $100 per solar install. Okay, so per solar install, that 2% equals 60 to $100. Okay, with 250 installs per month, the 2% pool equals between $15,000 and $25,000. So if you're the only executive director in the company and there's 250 installs, that 15 to 25,000 would go to you. If there was 2 or 3, you split it. Whatever that amount is, you would split with the amount of executive directors that are there. Now, this part is very important, by the way, before I move forward. When you get to executive director, you have to be a qualified executive director. What does that mean? When you get to an executive director in the comp plan, it's a lifetime rank. If I get to executive director with 70 installs in a 60-day period this month, but next month, my team didn't do those installs, I'm still paid as an executive director. It's a lifetime rank. However, in order for you to qualify for the executive and national director overrides, that particular month, you have to be a qualified executive director. That means that your team did the 70 or the 120 installs in the last 60 days. I want to make sure that's clear, guys. So it is a lifetime rank, but in order for you to get these pools, you got to be qualified executive director, which is great for the leaders that know that they're going to build it, because you're only going to split it, not only with executive directors and national directors, but qualified executive and nationals, which means that pool is more money for those of you guys that get it. Okay. So with 1,000 installs per month, you're looking at $60,000 to $100,000 is what that first executive director pool equals. So if there was 5 of you there, you'd earn between $12,000 and $20,000. That's what you would earn in overrides. All qualified executive directors split this pool. This is a company-wide override. And by the way, again, this is based on solar overrides only. We're not even including the membership sales, and we're not including the ADT home security sales. As a national director, 2% of all solar and security installs go into this pool. Okay. 2%. So again, the numbers are the same, right? If you are a national director, you're in the national director pool and you are in the executive pool. So when you get to national director, you're in this pool. Now, as national director, every executive director that you promote in your organization gets you an additional share in the pool. So when you go national director and you help somebody go executive director, you get a pool in the share. Then you get another pool in the share. So the more executive directors you produce in your organization, you get an additional share in the pool. Okay. Now, to finish this off, executive director 2%. If you and 5 others are qualified executive directors, let's say there's 5 executive directors and the company did 1,000 company installs, you'd each earn between $12,000 and $20,000 in addition to your overrides as executive director. This is extra money. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now overriding the entire company. As a national director, if you and 2 other people are qualified as national directors with 1,000 installs, a company doing 1,000 installs, that'd be between $20,000 and $33,000 that you would earn in addition to your executive director team earnings or national director team earnings, and in addition to your executive director pool. Now, I know that some of you guys, some of this is going over your head. I get it. You're not going to understand it all. Just know this. There's a lot of money in the comp plan, and you don't have to understand it all to make money from it, right? As you start to get to the manager, the director, executive director ranks, trust me when I tell you, you're going to understand them better, okay? But just know it's an amazing comp. So, okay, we're done here. So I want to do this. I'm going to open it up for 5 minutes for questions, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. And I'm going to stop the recording right now.